Hare Krishna, everyone, all the participants. I welcome all of you in today's class. Today, we are going to discuss a very important topic, which is very relevant to all of us because, to some extent, we all are leader. Every one of us are leading somebody and following somebody. So, it is very important to know what should be the quality of a leader because we are going to lead in future, and in fact at present also we are the leaders to some group we are leading, so that group will maybe increased in future. So it is very important what all qualities we should acquire, what are the qualities, characteristics, conducts, behavior, consciousness, mind control, all these things, what all qualities should have a leader should possess. That is very important for all of us to understand. So before we start, let us chant some prayer and then we'll Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Balaram ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, very interestingly, he says that यद यद आचरति श्रेष्ठस तत्तद एवैतरो जना स यद प्रमाणम कुरुते लोकस्तद some internet issue came, so sorry for that. Okay, so Krishna is saying here in third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text number 21, whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps, and whatever his standards he sets by exemplary act, all the world pursues. So a leader has got a very important responsibility in the society. And there are natural leaders, natural leaders who all are naturally their leader. So here in purport, Prabhupada writes, the king or the executive head of a state, the father and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. They are naturally leaders because they are guiding their subordinates, their dependents. So what all character they should have? So Krishna is saying they should set a standard by their exemplary act. There should be examples. Action speaks louder than the words. So what should be our action? What should be our conduct, behavior? That is very, very important, especially those who are leading, those who are natural leaders. So then Prabhupada continues, all such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with the standard book of moral and spiritual codes. So I will connect these lines of Bhagavad Gita with the line what India Chief Justice N.V. Ramanna said. I have already mentioned this, but again, in this class, it is very relevant. So I'll describe that also. So he says, N.V. Ramanna says that today education system is only focusing on utilitarian aspect of education. Utilitarian aspect means external growth, financial security, and position in the society. And there is no growth inside. There is no social growth. There is no spiritual growth. There is no training about spirituality and morality. Or if you call it, there is no sense of responsibility. They are not taught in the education system how to behave, what the quality of leader should be. So today we are fortunate enough to have with us Chanchalapati Prabhu. His lecture is there with us. So Chanchalapati Prabhu, as I have already described, he has given a delivered lecture in IIM Bangalore on the same topic as spirituality and leadership. So we are going to watch that video. So I request all of you to kindly make a note of all the points. Very, very important lecture it is, and how it is important and how we can inculcate the qualities, good qualities, being a leader. And in future also we are going to head somewhere in some department, some company, somewhere. So it is very, very important for all of us. It is our duty to understand and share also to others. Not that I have understood, now my job is done. Understand and share. And subscribe and share. That is the one thing. So I'm going to share Chanchalapati Prabhu, brief introduction. He is vice chairman and trustee of Akshayapatra Foundation and president of the VCM temple, Vrindavan Chandrodaya Mandir, which is going to be the world's tallest temple. In Vrindavan, it is under construction. Sometime I will show you that video also. It is under construction. Next 3-4 years, it will come the tallest structure of the world. Here in Vrindavan, it is going to be constructed 700 feet height or like something like that compared to Burj Khalifa. And Prabhu is also vice president of ISKCON Bangalore. He's passed out from ISC Bangalore. He did his master's in electrical communication engineering from ISC Bangalore. So we are blessed today to have his lecture on the same topic, because nowadays this leadership, this politics is going on, especially in UP, and UP is the, everybody's eye, the whole country's eyes is on UP, because it is a deciding factor who is going to become now next leader. So let us, in this particular situation scenario, let us watch a nice video and get some insights from this.
धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया Chakshurunmilitan ena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharini. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very pleased to be amidst all of you. And I had come here some years ago and made a presentation on our program, Akshaya Patra. And I'm happy to be here today to make another kind of a presentation on leadership and spirituality.
I request everyone to kindly, you can make notes also, so that it will be helpful for all of you in future.
There is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita which talks about actually the spirituality and spiritual knowledge is especially meant for the leaders in the society. Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakala neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. Commenting on this, Acharyas have mentioned that the use of the word Raja Rishi, meaning that they were leaders, but they were saintly leaders. And because leaders have a tremendous influence in the society, they can create an impact, they can alter the course of lives of people, they can craft policies which can influence a large number of people. And so they must have a spiritual framework which influences their thinking to maximize good for the people and even be prepared to sacrifice for themselves. And in our Indian tradition, recognizes three kinds of leaders. Actually, Indian traditional system recognizes three power centers in the society. There is the knowledge power center, and there is the administrative power center, and there is the wealth power center. And there are leaders who inhabit in all of these centers. And all of them have to be spiritually trained, spiritually cognizant, spiritually well-versed, so that whether they are dealing with knowledge, perspectives in the society, narratives in the society, or they are dealing with resources and people, or they are involved in creating wealth and managing wealth, all of them should have this background and should have this knowledge so that they can do better and influence the society in a more positive way. I'm not sure if you have heard of this Professor Jordan Peterson, a Canadian clinical psychology professor, very confident about everything that he talks about, interesting professor. This is what he had to say. This world is a terrible place to live. You will experience miseries one after another despite your best efforts to avoid them. You must have a purpose, meaning, and direction in life, and that should be noble and sublime. Something that is worth pursuing, something that gets you out of bed every morning, not just pursuit of happiness or wealth or security, because those pursuits are going to disappoint you in life. It's a catastrophe to not have a large, grand purpose in life. That's one of the things spirituality does. Brings a purpose, brings meaning, brings a certain vision. And not just a purpose and a vision or a meaning, but something that's very grand, something that's very noble. Lacking that, if we have to just goal of life is just about, it's not that we must not pursue happiness, pursue wealth, pursue career. That's a given thing. But while we do all of that, and we should do it well too, because that's the basics and you cannot negotiate in this world without those basic things. But apart from that, there is something, a larger than life purpose and meaning that has to motivate and drive us. If I were to stop in front of your campus here and stop any car and say that I'm doing a small survey, I want to know where you are driving, where are you heading? And people will say, I am driving to the shopping mall, or I'm driving home, I'm trying to pick up my child in a school, or something. Every car driver would tell me where they are heading. If you were to stop a car and ask the driver, so where are you heading? I'm just doing a small survey. And if the driver were to say, I just don't know, I'm just drifting and driving around, we would think it is absurd, isn't it? So in the same way, if we are or if the person says, I'm driving to follow the traffic rules, and I have some gas in the car, and to exhaust that I'm driving, it would look absurd. In the same way, the societal norms exist that we have to take care of ourselves, our families, and our community, and all of that. And that's a given thing. But even more than that, while you follow the traffic rules and all of that, you have an objective that you are pursuing. In the same way, our life needs a grander, larger purpose, and something that motivates us, drives us every day, and that just cannot be mere pursuit of happiness and security and those kind of things. And that's what Professor Jordan was mentioning. I would like to share another example. About 50, 60 years ago, Albert Einstein made a statement. I'm actually not interested in this equation or that spectrum. Those are details. I'm really interested to know how God created this universe. That was 50 years ago, probably. In recent times, another very celebrated scientist is Stephen Hawking. And he wrote a book. I'm sure it's a bestseller. A lot of people have. It's the most bought book, most sold book, but rarely read book, I think. A Brief History of Time. I got 3 copies of it. Different people presented that to me. Stephen Hawking and many other scientists were working on a problem, what was called the grand unification theory. Even in my college days, I used to hear talks about it, and in Bangalore there was one Nobel Prize winner who talked about it, and I remember that 30 years ago. Scientists are still working on that, and Stephen Hawking gave a different name to that theory, and he called that the theory of everything, with a capital T and a capital E, because that was meant to explain everything in the universe. Basically, scientists have identified 4 fundamental forces, 4 fundamental energies, which makes the universe the way it is. And the scientists are trying to find out if those 4 energies and 4 forces can be further reduced to one single force. That's the grand unification theory, and that explains the universe. And that's why there is a biopic on Stephen Hawking, and it was called The Theory of Everything. In the concluding paragraph of this book, A Brief History of Time, Stephen Hawking says, if we were to come up with this complete theory, the theory of everything, the grand unification theory, and then he says that grand unification theory must not be some complex, abstract, advanced mathematics that only scientists and a few people can understand. It must be so simple and elegant that scientists, common people, housewives, everyone can sit around a table and talk about it. It should be so simple and elegant to describe the universe. And then he says that if we were to have that theory, that would be the triumph of human intellect, because then we would know why we exist and why the universe exists. And then we would have known the mind of God. Almost 95% accurate quote I'm recalling. The interesting contrast between what Einstein said and what Stephen Hawking said is that Einstein's question was how God created this universe. And that's what I want to know, he said. Stephen Hawking's question is a few notches even higher. He asked the question, why? Not the how question, but the why question. Why we exist and why the universe exists. What is the purpose of our existence? What is the purpose of the universe's existence? What's the objective of this? There's another professor, Paul Davis, an Australian professor. He brings up another argument. We know that scientists are studying this world last 500 years or so, and they're trying to understand this world. He asks an interesting question. We study this universe, but a very fundamental question is, why does the universe exist at all? Why does something exist instead of nothing? So these are very important questions about why this world exists and why we exist. In fact, when they read my small introduction, you must have heard that I was very passionate about science, and I'm to some extent even now passionate about science. And then, in my school days and college days, but I never expected that I will have this hairstyle and this kind of robes someday when I grow up. There was a rather non-linear transition that happened in my life too. I found that at some point when I started reading Indian spirituality, I found that the very profound questions that science is dealing with was actually the very profound questions that Indian spirituality, Indian traditional knowledge systems had also dealt with. The methodology was different, the approach was different, but it was actually that. But, as we are all exposed to Western systems of education, so I had a bias. And I was always very cynical and skeptical about these systems. And then I continued to pursue. Somehow I was fortunate that I didn't fall out of it. So, Indian spirituality is also about providing a certain understanding about the purpose of the universe, purpose of the creation, purpose of all of us. And that definitely infuses a new energy in life. There is one interesting quote by Mark Twain. 2 most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. Most people don't come to the second important day in life. I'm here in a very prestigious business school, addressing all business school students. How can I not quote something from another world's prestigious business school? 2 professors from Harvard Business School wrote an essay about 4 years ago. And that essay was about purpose for a leader. How when a leader has purpose, that helps him navigate, that helps him make better decisions, that helps him to be a better leader. I'm reading from the essay, some excerpts. Over the past 5 years, there's been an explosion of interest in purpose-driven leadership. Academics argue persuasively that an executive's most important role is to be a steward of the organization's purpose. Business experts make the case that purpose is a key to exceptional performance, while psychologists describe it as the pathway to greater well-being. Doctors have even found that people with purpose in their lives are less prone to disease or respond better to treatment. Purpose is increasingly being touted as the key to navigating the complex, volatile, ambiguous world we face today, where strategy is ever changing and few decisions are obviously right or wrong. Despite this growing understanding, however, a big challenge remains. In our work, training thousands of managers at organizations from GE to the Girl Scouts, and teaching an equal number of executives and students at Harvard Business School, we have found that fewer than 20% of leaders have a strong sense of their own individual purpose. Even fewer can distill their purpose into a concrete statement. They may be able to clearly articulate their organization's mission. Think of Google's, to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Or Charles Schwab's, a relentless ally for individual investor. But when asked to describe their own purpose, they typically fall back on something generic and nebulous. Help others excel, ensure success, empower my people. Just as problematic, hardly any of them have a clear plan for translating purpose into action. As a result, they limit their aspirations and often fail to achieve their most ambitious personal and professional and personal goals. From Purpose to Impact by Nick Craig and Scott Snook, Harvard Business Review. The last few decades that I have been involved quite rigorously in spirituality, what I have found is that spirituality gives a grand purpose of life and an even grander purpose of the creation. I would like to share with you what happens in the Bhagavad Gita, first and the early part of the second chapter of the Gita. This part is pretty much Arjuna speaking. Krishna begins to speak from the second chapter onwards. And it's the story of Arjuna's dilemma. The Pandavas returned from exile and they asked their cousin for their share of the kingdom. And Duryodhana refused. Krishna, who was their common cousin, traveled from Dwaraka to Hastinapura and said that I will mediate. And he went to Duryodhana and asked for the fair share of the kingdom that the Pandavas were due to get. And Duryodhana said, no. Krishna negotiated further and asked, can you give 5 villages for the 5 Pandavas? For which Duryodhana said, I will not give as much land or kingdom as much as even a pin can pierce. So the battle was inevitable. Pandavas had just returned from exile and they had no kingdom, they had no army. They went around and asking other kings to support them, and there were many kings who rallied with their cause, and they said that we will give our armies. Duryodhana also went around rallying his cause, that how he should not give the kingdom, share the kingdom with the Pandavas, and there were many kings who supported him. And so they also offered their support. And the battle of Kurukshetra was about to begin. And we all know Krishna, being a cousin and related to both, he said that I will not participate. And he remained neutral, and he was only becoming a charioteer for Arjuna. And Arjuna and Krishna, as cousins, contemporaries, he said, Krishna, drive the chariot, I want to see who have assembled to fight. And then when Krishna drove the chariot and Arjuna saw who all have assembled, suddenly he spotted his grandfather. And it was his grandfather who had cared for them when they were young. And then he spotted his teacher, Drona, who had taught him how to fight. And then he started spotting more and more his cousins and this and this and that. And then he turns to Krishna and says, what's happening, Krishna? And then he gives a series of reasoning why he should not fight. If you carefully see the reasons that Arjuna gives very morally sound reasons. Arjuna gives very ethical reasons. Arjuna gives very humanitarian reasons. Arjuna even gives dharmic reasons. Arjuna says, Krishna, they have become overpowered by greed for kingdom. Should we also respond with our greed for kingdom? Can we not respond with more grace? Better I go to the forest. They are my superiors, my teacher, my grandfather. They are the ones who have actually blessed me with all this learning. And they are pujarha. I must be showering flowers at their feet. But how dare I stand here ready to shoot arrows at them? What's wrong with me? And if this battle were to happen, so many soldiers from my side and their side will be killed. So many men killed. And what will happen to their families? What will happen to their children? What will happen to their wives? When the breadwinner in the family, from a traditional Indian society, he's talking. When the man is killed, then what will happen to the family? And what will happen to the women? They will not be protected. And when there is no protection from the husband, there will be all kinds of perpetrators of evil in the society. And because of that, there will be so many problems. And I will be the cause of all of this. So if you carefully see the reasoning that Arjuna gives, you may almost conclude, yeah, what's there? Yes, this war should not happen. Let Pandavas go back to the forest. And that's the end of Bhagavad Gita. What actually happens is, Krishna now presents a certain perspective of life, a certain purpose of life, a certain purpose of the entire creation. And he invokes that new perspective and describes the Bhagavad Gita. And at the end of hearing all this, some scholars estimate that it must have taken about 45 minutes for Krishna to speak. Those 700, actually they're not 700, some verses are description of many other things. So, at the end of that, Arjuna became suffused with new energy and a new understanding about life. He saw things from a different perspective, a different motivation, a different purpose. And Arjuna, who had set aside his bow and arrow, declining to fight, he said, Nashta moha smrutir labdva tvat prasadan mayachyuta stitoham gata sanghosmi karishye vachanam tava. Now I am ready to fight Krishna. So Krishna brought about this kind of a transformation in Arjuna by a new perspective, a new purpose that Krishna taught in the Gita. When I say Krishna presented a new perspective, something that surpasses moral, ethical, humanitarian, even dharmic considerations, it does not mean the new perspective is not immoral or unethical. It is something that transcends all of that perspective. Like my spiritual mentor used to give an example. The perspective, the knowledge that Krishna has given in the Bhagavad Gita is so elevated and so exalted. It includes all other understanding. It's just like, suppose you have 1 lakh rupees. It means you also have 1,000 rupees. It also means you have 10,000 rupees. It includes all of that. So the perspective that Krishna presented was so much more elevated. It was morally, ethically, from humanitarian consideration, even more sublime and noble. Now, how does Krishna do that? What was it that Krishna told Arjuna that shook up Arjuna? And from all those sound considerations that he had, that why he should not fight, changed to his readiness to fight. To understand that, let's go back in time about 5,000 years ago. How it was in our country. 5,000 years ago, definitely there was no motor cars and roads and transportation, all of that. It was very, very pastoral India, agricultural, agrarian India. At that time, I'm saying 5,000 because 5,000 years ago, there was an epochal change, what is known as the Yugantara, a change of Yuga, from Dwapara Yuga to beginning of Kali Yuga. And prior to Kali Yuga, in Dwapar Yuga, there was a system of knowledge in our country, and that knowledge was being passed on in an oral tradition. Now, this entire corpus of Vedic knowledge, in fact, today if you ask somebody what are the Vedas, they would say Vedas are Hindu scriptures, just like Bible is for a Christian or a Quran is for a Muslim. This is scriptures for the Hindus. But actually, if you see the etymology of the word Veda, it comes from the word with, to know. It actually means knowledge. Vedas simply meant knowledge. It was not, actually there were no Hindu, all those kind of considerations at all at that time. It was the knowledge in the society. And there was a certain corpus of knowledge. In fact, 5,000 years ago, there was not even a written habit, writing habit. It was transmitted in an oral tradition. In fact, it is said that at the dawn of Kali Yuga, the writing habit emerged. Why? Because the sages at that time, who were custodians of this knowledge, realized that people in Kali Yuga are not going to be so intelligent that they cannot grasp this knowledge through an oral tradition. They will be so disturbed about their own lives. Prayan alpaishaha sabhya kalavasmin yuge janaha manda sumanda matayor manda bhagyahya upadhritaha. They'll be so disturbed always in their life, because spirituality requires a certain serenity, certain tranquility within ourselves too, because you have to reflect on certain profound concepts of life. And people are very disturbed in Kali Yuga. And I'm sure you're all aware of that. I was reading a newspaper some years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and the front page, there was news that Wipro has posted their results, and the results said that the quarter they had made some, I don't remember the figures, but fabulous figures, some 4,000 crores or something like that, profits. But then it said that the senior management of Wipro, they're all having sleepless nights. So I was wondering, 4,000 crores in a quarter and they're having sleepless nights? Because their competition made 10% more profit, and so on. So you can imagine this world, and the world that all of you are part of, is a world of a lot of anxiety and tension and chasing deadlines and targets and all of that. So life, in every strata of life, people have their own kinds of anxieties that they are battling with. So envisaging that Kali Yuga is going to be this kind of a situation, they realize that we have to put this into written form. And for the first time, the corpus of Vedic knowledge, which was being transmitted here and there in different parts of our country, you can imagine how it would have been. There would be a guru there would be an acharya in some other part of the country, and they would have a small number of students, and they would be imparting that lesson. That was the kind of a situation. And occasionally these acharyas would also travel the length and breadth sharing this knowledge. And it was a very rigorous knowledge tradition that existed. There was debate, discourse, arguments. It was very intellectual. So this would happen, but then they realized that now we have to put it in a written form. Actually, you see how we have learned in our school and college a certain perspective. Writing habit came about, they say, 3,000 years ago. And we are told that the emergence of the writing habit signals the emergence of new intelligence in the world. But actually the Vedic perspective is that no, the emergence of the writing habit signals the deterioration of intelligence, and so they had to create a writing habit. So, among Veda Vyasa, a very, very exalted sage, was chosen to put all of this knowledge in a written form. And what did he do? Like, say, for instance, in today's world, if we were to suppose there is a professor of mathematics, and then we say that we understand mathematical knowledge is very important in the society.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. So I hope you like the lecture given by Prabhu. It is not yet completed. It is 1/3 only we have played. We have heard 2/3 is still remaining. Maybe I can share in the group. You can watch it personally, or some other time we can play again in our class. But now the kind of understanding Prabhu gave. He started the lecture in a very nice way. So I want all of you to kindly give your understanding and your whatever insights you got from the lecture, and how this insight was connected to leadership. Because big leaders, big scientists in Harvard Business School, Stephen Hawking, Einstein, and Peterson, all these kinds of people, they are the leaders as well as the scientists, also scholars, but what they are all saying. So I want all of you to kindly quickly in 5 minutes just write in the chat box, or you can speak also. What did you learn in today's video about spirituality and leadership? Ultimately, it was emerging into, it was the ultimate point was coming about purpose. Many quotes Prabhu quoted of different scientists and scholars. So yes, you can start. Harika, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, purpose of life, purpose is the key. Yes. So Prabhu explained that because he was from the beginning, he was very much fascinated by the science. Then in his graduation time, while he was pursuing graduation, post-graduation, he was inclined towards Indian spirituality. So then he started reading that book also. Then he found one thing common, that science is also dealing with some one thing, and Indian spirituality is also dealing that one thing. What is that particular one thing? That is purpose. Methodology is different, but ultimately both the fields, science and spirituality, both are dealing with purpose. What is the purpose? So purpose infuses energy in our life, and there must be a grand purpose, like that. So different quotation Pro gave, Jordan Peterson. So yes, Saurabh is writing, Prabhuji, please continue this video in next class so that we can discuss and understand more properly. Yes, definitely. If you all like, if you all unanimously say, then we can definitely in tomorrow's class we can play it again, because Prabhu is now setting the ground. He's still two-third lecture is still remaining. So if we hear the complete lecture, then it will be a conclusive and in a succinct manner, the understanding will be there to us. Are there two important days of life? Yes. First, when we were born, and second, why we are born. Yes. So there are two important days in our lives. First, what we celebrate as happy birthday, and second, many of us don't value it, don't care for it. That is, or don't even look for that. That is why we took birth. And I like Einstein gave one statement that I'm interested in this phenomena or that phenomena, in this spectrum of that spectrum. These are all details. I want to know mind of God, how God created this universe. So he questioned how. But then Stephen Hawking came and he gave a grand unification theory of everything. He wanted to conclude the four fundamental forces into one force. So he wanted to reduce into one force. Then he said that concluding part, if somehow that if we were to come up with a theory, grand unification theory, the theory of everything, then that theory should be so easy, so very simple that anybody, labor class, women, children, anybody can understand. And if we can come to that level, that understanding, then we can know why do we exist and why this universe exists. And then we can know the mind of God. And that will be the ultimate triumph of human reason, human brain. So here he is putting question, why? Einstein said how, Stephen Hawking is saying why this universe. So just see how all of these scientists are so much inquisitive. They are doing all the research, innovations, they are putting all their intellects to understand the purpose of creation, how it is created, why it is created. So it is very important to know. All of us should be very inspired, motivated, geared. All other things we are geared up to get, but all these things are very obvious we will get because we have understood the theory of the law of karma. Yes, I have explained those law of karma to all of you, that whatever you are destined, you will get that. Don't worry. You have to just perform your duty very judiciously, very honestly. That's all. Everyday basis, day-to-day basis, you just go on doing your duty, you will get that. But where you can make change, there you should endeavor to learn to understand the purpose of life. You should be burning with this desire. And we should first understand and infuse others also with this understanding. Okay, so Kirti is right. We don't know where we are leading our lives while only showing concern for money, name, and position. Yes. So Prabhu gave the example. Suppose आपको सर्वे करने के लिए बोला जाए, जितनी भी गाड़ी जा रही है आपके घर के सामने से, you go and stop all the cars and make a survey. Where are you heading? And one person says that, oh, I am not going anywhere. Just I am turning my steering where the road is turning. Or मैं गाड़ी में फ्यूल है, so just to exhaust the fuel, I am just driving the car. So it will be very absurd answer. So like that, we were small now, so we were put into school. As we grew, so we are now following the education system. 10th अच्छा क्या करें, अब बायोलॉजी में जाएं, मैथ्स में जाएं, 12th आ गया, अच्छा आईआईटी में चले जा सकते हैं, नीट में जा सकते हैं, देन अगेन वो थर्ड ईयर में आ गए. नाउ एवरीबॉडी इज रनिंग फॉर प्लेसमेंट, तो वी शुड आल्सो रन फॉर प्लेसमेंट. तो प्लेसमेंट ले लिए, फिर कंपनी में चले गए, फिर 1-2 साल करने के बाद अब मनी सिक्योर करना है, कार खरीदना है, चलो एक अच्छा हमारा सेटलमेंट होना चाहिए, स्टैब्लिशमेंट होना चाहिए, देन शादी करनी है, शादी कर लो, देन बच्चे, फिर बूढ़े, फिर मर गए. सो वी आर जस्ट फॉलोइंग अ system race. In a race we are, but did we ever inquire why we are doing all these things? So we should have all this understanding. And Bhagavad and a leader is meant to deal with all these things. A leader should be well acquainted and he should be bubbling with knowledge, spirituality, purpose of life, and he should infuse this understanding into others also. So the very first quality of leader should be this, at least, that he should know the purpose of life, why we are doing all this. Anna? Yes. And spiritual knowledge is for leaders. Rashina is Rakshita Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Spiritual leadership makes leader not get attached to material matters, then there will be a peace community. Yes, very good. So Mark Twain said one should know two things. One is the day when just born and why we are born. Purpose of life should be apart from wealth and security. Shrija, what is leadership? The perspective of different scientists, the contrast of spirituality with science, the purpose of life, what are leadership qualities? Oh, very nice. You have summarized the lecture. We need to know our purpose of driving, and that purpose comes through spiritual knowledge. As leaders create an impact and can change course of life of many, they must be trained with spiritual knowledge. Acha, very nice. So nice to hear from all of you. All of you very nicely, attentively heard the lecture, and I hope you made notes also. So very nice to see. Now time is also heading. It is going forward very fastly. We can control everything, but we cannot control time. So we have to run behind the time. So with this, we'll stop. Maybe if you also desire, we can continue tomorrow again the same topic. What is your input? So whether we should continue this topic again tomorrow, kindly raise your hand. I want to just get an idea whether we should continue the same topic tomorrow. How many of you want that? Yes, because this is very important topic. No, we are going to become leaders. So क्या understanding होना चाहिए? कैसे उसको acquire करें? All those things. So I'm seeing most of you are raising your hands. So okay, so tomorrow we'll continue again the same class. So till that time, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And today I would like to meet Padam Dhar. Padam, can you just be there for next 10 minutes? I want to meet you, and rest of you can continue with your duties, other work. Padam Dhar can be there and others can leave. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna padam